Hey, what's going on, gang? Nate on the Stone here. Welcome back to my channel and to the 74th episode of The Rolling Stone. We are loaded for bear this week, honestly, as we always are, but this week is special, just based on what has happened this past week, and especially in regards to our last story, okay? We're going to be breaking some of the not the rules, but sort of the norms that we've established here on the channel, because we're actually going to be talking about what is breaking news. Okay, so you're going to want to stick around for that. But first of all, our first story, I don't know how to phrase this, gang, but traditional American politics are dead. They're gone. They are the memories of yesterday. Okay? You know, kind of how Wayne Fontana sang his song, or wrote a song, Pamela, Pamela. Pamela, Pamela, remember the days of inkwells and apples, textbooks and school plays. And if you'll forgive my singing, you know, the point is those long forgotten days when everything was cozy and wonderful and marvelous. Well, in the realm of American politics, those days are all gone. And this is really what showed me that that's the case. So, earlier this week, Kamala Harris called a potential Biden and Harris administration a Harris-Biden administration. Okay? This is what she said. This is according to the UK Sun. Harris, currently a senator from California, was speaking during a virtual economic roundtable with small business owners in Arizona when she said, quote, a Harris administration together with Joe Biden as the president of the United States. And then, of course, she quickly clarified the Biden-Harris administration, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so what was so prominent about that is that Joe Biden, the man who is actually running for president, was made to play second fiddle by the woman who is supposed to be his second fiddle. Okay, that's not supposed to be a slam against Kamala Harris or anything like that. I'd say other things if I wanted to take a slam at her. But the role of the vice president, or the role of anyone who is nominated to be someone's vice presidential candidate, is automatically, because of the very nature of the job, the second fiddle. Okay, they are violin 2 to the presidential candidate or nominee's violin 1. Or to put it in comic book terms, the presidential candidate is Batman in this dynamic duo, and the vice presidential candidate is Robin. Or if you prefer, the presidential candidate is Captain America, and the VP is Bucky. Or, you know, he's the Flash, Kid Flash, Green Arrow, Speedy too, which makes him sound more like he should be Speedy Gonzalez's sidekick, but that's a whole nother story. So anyway, that would have been, I mean, remarkable enough. In fact, some people were mentioning that it looked like Harris was actually reading from a teleprompter, which suggested that it had actually been written down, a Harris-Biden administration. A Harris administration, she said, that had actually been written down, which made some people speculate that perhaps, there was some sort of civil war strife going on in the Biden campaign. You had Joe Biden's circle of people, you had Harris's circle of people, and they were duking it out for supremacy. But then things got really strange, gang, because the very next day, so Harris made her remarks on September the 14th. The very next day, on September the 15th, again according to the UK Sun, Joe Biden called his own administration the Harris-Biden administration. Headline: who's in charge? Biden calls his own potential presidency the Harris-Biden administration just a day after Kamala made the same slip-up. The story begins. Democrat nominee Joe Biden referred to his own campaign as Harris-Biden instead of Biden-Harris just a day after his running mate Kamala Harris had the same awkward slip. Biden uttered the mistake on Tuesday during a campaign event in Tampa, Florida. The Harris-Biden administration is going to relaunch that effort and keep pushing further to make it easier for military spouses and veterans to find meaningful careers, Biden said. What makes this so prominent, because you might be wondering, Nate, okay, we all know that Joe Biden is senile, okay? We all know that he's deteriorating right in front of our eyes. What's the big deal here? Why are you making this the lead story for this edition of the Rolling Stone? Because, like I said, gang, this, for however innocuous this story seems, for however much we might just laugh it off as, Joe being Joe, no one knows who's in charge. It's complete chaos in the campaign over there. This story does, I truly believe, mark the end of American politics as they have, in large part, played out in our history since the beginning. Okay, because let me tell you what I think is happening. As I just mentioned, a blind man, a man who is a deaf and dumb and blind man, okay, a man who is blind and deaf and dumb, all three, would be able to tell that Joe Biden is mentally unfit for the presidency. He's morally unfit too. Even if he was mentally all there, he'd be morally unfit for the presidency for numerous reasons. But he's mentally unfit. He is mentally incapable of being president of the United States. Every time he speaks anymore, that fact is plastered all over the wall for everyone to see. At the beginning of the year, I believe that this started last year, and then at the beginning of this year, every once in a while he'd flip. He kind of stutter and like that, and they said, Joe has always struggled. He's struggled with stuttering when he was younger. How dare you make fun of him? But now it's almost every day. These stories aren't special anymore, in a sense, because he makes a new faux pas every day. He loses his train of thought. He doesn't remember people. He doesn't know what reality is. He says that he was with people that he was never with. And not just close friends or family members, people on the international stage. The man is a walking embarrassment, almost. In fact, not an almost. This man, Joe Biden, is a walking embarrassment to the United States. That one of the two major political parties in the world's superpower, okay, we still have a few more months before the rent comes due and we will be unable to pay it, so that title will go to China. But the presidential nominee of one of the two major political parties in the world's superpower, that he's like this, is an international embarrassment to the United States. And everyone knows it. Everyone knows it. And so this is where we get to the end of American politics, because usually you would guess that the campaign would do everything in its power to downplay the fact. They would be coming up with excuses right and left. They would be giving Biden tight scripts to read from. And, he would be answering no questions of any sort. And that's true in a sense. His scripts are being tightly written. He's reading them from a teleprompter. And in fact, it sounds as if someone is actually typing out answers when he does take questions. Someone is actually typing out the answers to the question, and he's just reading them off the teleprompter. That's what it seems from just watching him, okay? You would expect all that, but the Democrat Party has taken it to the next level by having this campaign and a potential Biden administration, by having them call it, the number one and the number two people in it, start calling it the Harris administration, the Harris-Biden administration. What they are doing, not just, finally being honest and admitting that, Joe is a sock puppet, but they are acclimating us. There we go. Acclimating us. I can't think too much about that word, otherwise I'll trip all over my tongue. They are acclimating us to the idea that Kamala Harris will be running the show if they are victorious in November. That's what's happening here. They are acclimating us to the idea that Harris is the brains, she's the one in charge. So, when, Joe resigns, hypothetically speaking, Biden and Harris win on election day on November 3rd, and everything is hunky-dory. But when he then resigns from the presidency, because he'll be sworn in January, when he resigns a week later, or on January 31st, or on February 1st, and Kamala Harris steps up to become president, we'll already be used to the idea that Biden was on the way out, because we will have been used to hearing about the Harris administration or the Harris-Biden administration. And so this will just seem like a natural process. This will seem, oh yeah, this was in the cards the whole time. Nothing to see here. And that's where the end of American politics comes in the fact that they are actually being this honest. Because in the old days, by which I mean, just even 30 years ago, you wanted the best and the brightest on your side to be the president. Now, I know that did not, many times probably, did not always happen, because there are always struggles and there are always political / power games to be played. So, okay, it's your turn to run for president now. Oh, you're going to have a turn to run for president, etc., etc., etc. Kind of like what happened in 2008, right? It was John McCain had run for president several times, and the party finally said, okay, John, it's your turn. You're going to be the nominee. Hillary Clinton, okay, you've been a good soldier. It's going to be your turn to be our nominee. Your turn to run for president. Barack Obama kind of fudged that up for her, but then in 2016 they said, cross our heart, hope to die, super duper pinky swear promise. It's your turn to become president. That didn't work either. But the idea was you wanted someone who, at the very least, could speak, could think at some level on their feet, and that they could sell themselves and the party and the ideology to the people. Those were basically the 4 fundamental requirements for a presidential candidate / nominee. And if he came with other virtues and gifts, all the better. That now is all past us. Now it doesn't matter who you nominate for president, because the power no longer, in a sense, is with the president. That's the thing. This is a point, actually, that Mark Stein has brought up several times. One of the most refreshing things in 2016 about Trump's campaign, the Trump campaign, was that, as Stein puts it, Trump was all candidate and no handlers. There were no political advisors, the people who have been in politics 20, 30, 40, 50 years advising him, okay, dress like this, say this, wave like this, etc., 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 to get more points in the polls, right? There was none of that. He was just himself, for better or worse, love it, hate it, or indifferent to it. He was himself. He was authentic, in a sense, which is a big reason why the Republican Party didn't like him either. But those days are done. Those days are done, especially if Trump loses. And even in this campaign, he seems to have a few more handlers about him. He's listening to more people and not just going off with what he feels and or what he honestly thinks. But to bring it back here to Biden, the fact that a major Democrat party, that a major political party in the United States is perfectly willing to say up front that, yeah, our nominee isn't going to be president for very long. It shows that the people that we are electing for these offices are not the people who are really in charge. Okay, even if Joe Biden was going to stay in the White House for his whole term, again, assuming that he won, he wasn't going to be making his decisions. If you vote for Joe Biden, you're not voting for Biden. You are voting for his handlers. You are voting for a whole set of masked, faceless handlers, advisors, power mongers, and political chess players behind the throne calling all the shots. That's where we're at. Candidates now, they're almost like totems. They're almost like little game pieces that you can move around. They're brands, basically. What is the person that we can best put our brand into? This guy? Great. Doesn't matter what his qualifications are. It doesn't matter if he's mentally deteriorating right in front of our eyes. In fact, since he's mentally deteriorating, that's even better because he'll be easier to control. This is where it is. This is where we are now. The political system of our country has completed its metamorphosis, I would say, and is now an oligarchy. The political class now runs our political system. That's what it is. And they're not going to give away any of their power. By no means, no. The only thing that they're afraid of, on both sides, I should say, is the mob. The mob is the only thing that they're scared of. You, Mr. and Mrs. Average American, they're not scared of you. They don't care about you. The only time they care about you is every other November when it's time for you to vote. That is the position of where we are. That's what this story shows, and that is story number one.